Ecclesiastes chapter 4. And today he's going to look at a particular person, or a couple people in particular, but we're going to cover one subject tonight. And first we're going to talk about the lonely man. All right? There you go. I don't want to be a guy that's alone. So let's read Ecclesiastes chapter 4. We're going to read verse 7 through 12. All right, and then we'll get into the lesson here. In verse 7 it says, "Then I returned, and I saw vanity under the sun. There is one alone, and there is not a second. Yea, he hath neither child nor brother, yet is there no end of all his labor. Neither is his eye satisfied with riches. Neither saith he, For whom do I labor, and bereave my soul of good? This is also vanity. Yea, it is a sore travail." Okay? Then we get into verse 9. "Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. Again, if two lie together, they have heat. But how can one be warm alone? And if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him. And a threefold cord is not quickly broken." Okay? So he sees the contrast. He sees the lonely man, and that leads him to start reflecting on some of these things, reflect some of his previous proverbs on what is better than being the lonely man. So let me ask you guys this. How can someone isolate themselves from others? Grace?
Like, they just stop hanging around other people, and they just, like, go hide in the car.
Go hide in the car, all right.
I
Yeah.
used to do that.
Or you just work from home, order groceries from home, and just do everything at their home.
Now that brings up a good idea. It's so much easier today to isolate yourself, all right? You went there about you can order your groceries, you can order takeout, everything. It used to be like takeout was only like for Chinese food and pizza. Now you can get everything as takeout. You get it all in Grubhub and stuff and spend about as much as you spend on the food, on deliveries and so forth. It's not a good economic decision, guys, to keep ordering takeout. Ask my brother. All right, but anyway, you can isolate yourself because of that. I would also say, due to things like social media and just media in general, it's very easy to just kind of isolate yourself, but also get like this pseudo feeling of community. Like I have people that I can confide in, or people that support me, when all they are people you actually don't know. All right, there people all over the world have hundreds, if not thousands, and I'm not talking about your big influencers or anything like that, but there's people all over the world that have hundreds, if not thousands of friends or followers who are people they really don't know. All right, there's someone they bumped into at the grocery store or said hi to when they were in 7th grade or something like that. They don't really know them, but it gives people this false sense of community. All right, and it's very easy to isolate yourself from that. All right, we saw you can look into research and so forth, and you can see a lot of problems that occurred, especially when the pandemic came about and people were actually isolated from others. All right, so the reason I'm asking these questions, all right, is because we see Solomon looks at one man who's alone. Now, he's not technically alone. He's working. He has other people around him, but he chooses to be alone, or at least he chooses to work alone. All right, the king discovered that this man had no relatives. He had no son. He had no brother. And he had no partners to help him in business, nor did he desire any help. How many of you guys know someone would rather just do it themselves? All right? People will mess it up. Other people will do it. Or, you know what? I just don't like dealing with people and so forth. You know, people are annoying. Whatever the case may be. All right? This is kind of like that man. He was so busy, he had no time to enjoy his profits. You know, it says there was no end to his labor, and he was never satisfied. And if he died, he had no one to inherit all his wealth. Okay, that's what Solomon's observing here. This guy's working so hard. He has nobody to help him. All right, not that he cares about it, but he's working so hard he has no opportunity to even enjoy the things he's working for. And if he could, he wasn't going to be satisfied with it anyway. And if he was to die, he was leaving it to nobody because he had no brother, he had no son. All right, is that sad?
Yes.
Yes. And in fact, Solomon kind of concludes that where he says, this is vanity. He says all his labor was in vain. Okay? Now, oftentimes, someone finds themselves as the lonely man, all right, because they become like this person where they become a selfish person. All right? So let me ask you this. What does it mean to be selfish? Josiah?
Centered on self.
Center on yourself. You're only thinking about yourself. Now, can you think of any anybody in the Bible that was a selfish person? All right, Ethan.
Samson.
Samson. Why was he selfish?
He was focused on himself.
Okay. Give me an example from the narrative of Samson. Why was he selfish? How did he show his selfishness? What was the first thing we see Samson do as an adult? He asked his parents for what?
A wife.
Not just any wife. He asked his parents for this wife. This girl that was not a believer, or not of Israel. And he says, give her to me because she pleaseth me well. All right? Gage, choose another one.
Saul.
Saul. Which Saul?
Old Testament.
Old Testament Saul. How, I gotta phrase this better, how did he show his selfishness?
He didn't care that there were good things happening to his nation as a whole. He only cared that he wasn't the one doing them, and so he tried to kill the guy who was...
I know, he was no longer the main topic of songs. He wasn't topping the charts anymore. They said Saul killed thousands, and that wasn't good enough for him. He needed to be the top dog. All right, we'll take one more. Grace.
David, when he sees Bathsheba.
Yeah, that's true. He made a selfish decision, and he had consequences for that. Now, here's the thing. Here's something I want to bring to light. All right, I'm going to bring up two people here. A selfish man thinks only of himself. The first person I'm going to bring up is Achan. All right, who's Achan? Anybody know? Makai.
He was one of the Israelites when they went into.
What was his selfish deed? Let me ask you this.
He stole the gold and silver and.
He stole the spoils of Jericho when he was specifically told not to. And in fact, it's in your notes. I have the verse that's there. In those verses, he's talking, hey, I saw amongst the spoils, and I wanted it, and he took it, and it ended up costing the lives of some of the soldiers when they went to fight up against Ai. All right? Now, Achan is a classic example of what we think, especially from the Bible, what selfishness is. All right? Selfishness is when somebody's like, oh, I want this, I want that, I want my way, I want him, I want her, whatever it is. Selfishness has to do with people wanting to gain things. All right? But you guys understand, selfishness can show itself in different ways than that, right? It's not just about gaining, right? Which brings me to my second example I want to talk about tonight is Elijah.
Hello.
All right, the prophet of Elijah. How did Elijah show his selfishness? Gage.
He said because he thought that he was the only follower of God left for him just to die right there.
Yeah. Was he trying to like attain wealth or anything, or attain this thing or that thing?
No.
Not in the typical sense we're thinking of, all right? But was he still just thinking about himself?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we talk about. That's the definition of selfishness. All right, it's the same thing with pride. All right, Brother Patrick hit upon it a couple times throughout his lessons, where like pride is not just trying to boast of yourself and make yourself seem great. Pride is simply just thinking of yourself too much, even if it's in a low, like, oh man, I'm the worst. Nobody loves me. Elijah was kind of doing that when it comes to selfishness. All right, I'm the only one. You know, I'd rather just die. I don't want to go through this anymore. All right, so I want us to understand that selfishness rears its head in different ways, like in the Achan way, or the way we talked about with a lot of the other people, or even in the Elijah way. Let me ask you guys this, and this is the opposite. This is where we're trying to get to the solution to why you shouldn't choose to be a lonely man. All right, sounds like an old Western name, you know, the lonely man. You shouldn't want to choose to be the lonely man. All right, and we're going to talk about that tonight. But let me first bring up this question. Ladies, let me ask the ladies, all right? What was the first thing that God said wasn't good? Joanna.
For man to be alone.
For man to be alone. That's in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18.
And the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him an helpmate for him.
I will make him a helpmeet for him. All right, thank you very much. You sit down. So he said it wasn't good for man to be alone. So if God sees you as the lonely man, is that necessarily a good thing? No, it's not saying you're sinning if you're alone or something like that. But what did God say he was going to do since it wasn't good for man to be alone? He was saying he was going to do what? Grace.
Make him a helpmeet.
A helpmeet. And that's a very interesting word there, helpmeet. It simply means one who helps. And then specifically in this case, the helpmeet was Eve, his wife. And that's where we get the picture of marriage and so forth. But I love that word there, helpmeet. It's not simply just one meet to help, but it brings up this scenario in my mind. This isn't, from the Bible or anything necessary, but it's like, hey, you need help? Allow me to meet the need. Okay? So that's why it's good not to be a lonely person, all right, the lonely man, all right, choosing to isolate yourself, because God, he said it wasn't good. He understands man can't do things simply by themselves. They need a community. And we're going to talk about what that community should be for us, all right, but he needs people to help them, all right, because, you know, Gage, do you know everything?
No.
Is there people out there that know things you don't know?
Easily.
Easily, all right? Micah, can you perform every task there is?
No.
All right. Are there people out there that know how to perform tasks that you can't?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Some people are more handy. Some people are more, you know, technical. Some people are, whatever it may be, people supplement other people's needs. All right. That's why it's good to have a community, especially as believers, to help meet the needs that you may have. All right. And that's where we get this idea of a helpmeet. Now, in this example in the Bible, it's talking about one's wife, but it's also a reason why we shouldn't choose to be the lonely man. Which brings us to our second main point. We're going to talk about community. All right, why is it important to have a community? So before we get into that, can somebody tell me what is the definition, or what does community mean? It's a group of people, yeah.
To thrive together.
To thrive together, that's not bad. All right, anybody else? Block.
A group of people that are together that are trying to get a common goal with.
That's actually not bad. That's actually pretty close. None of those were wrong, but here's the definition we're going with. It's still a good definition for community. It's a feeling of fellowship with others, a group of people, as a result of sharing the same attitudes, interests, and goals. Okay? All right? If I'm going to have a community, you know, if people like join a gym or something like that, right? Where it'd be like Orange, it's like a popular thing now where they call them like fitness clubs or whatever. You got Orange Theory, cycling, CrossFit, whatever. People really enjoy those because it gives them a good sense of community. And what they mean by that is the people who are going there are other people who want to do what? Work out. Get fit. Lose some weight. You know, look good before summer. Whatever it may be, they all have a similar what? Goal. All right? People that go, you know, when you guys go into college, you're going to have opportunities to do certain like extracurriculars, whether it be like dramas or musical stuff or sports and whatever. You're going to find a community in those because everyone else that's going out to do it has the same goal, the same interest. All right, it's the same thing when it comes to the Christian as well. All right, Solomon's experience with the lonely man caused him to consider the importance of friendship and the value of people doing things together. All right, in verse 9 through 12, we'll actually read that here in a second, but he sees like, hey, it's not good for man to be alone because 2 people can do this, 3 people can do that. It's good to have that community. All right, so let me ask you this. Who should we have fellowship with? All right.
Other Christians.
Other Christians. All right, here we go. 2 Corinthians 6:14.
Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers, for what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion hath light with darkness?
Yeah, be not unequally yoked with unbelievers, correct? All right, so moving on from that, what should be our... Because Christians can have fellowship over multiple things, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's one trait that you always hear people talk about Baptists have all the time? All right. What was that, Amethyst?
Eating.
Eating! I saw her mouth food. She was like, yes. They're like, oh, you know, good Baptists. They love to eat, blah, 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 you know, so forth, you know, potlucks. All right. So obviously Christians can have multiple sources of fellowship, but what should be our greatest source of fellowship, Rebecca? God. Jesus Christ should be our greatest source of fellowship. All right, so we're going to read through the verses 9 through 12, and we're going to see the different things Solomon's talking about, why it's good not to be alone, okay? And in verse 9, he says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their labor. So the first thing he talks about is like, it's good not to be alone when it comes to work, okay? How many of you guys have ever heard the saying, many hands make light work? All right, why is that a saying? Like, what is the meaning of that? Lily?
It goes faster when more hands are working.
It goes faster when more hands are working, all right? Hopefully, if things go well, Miss Christine and I, in a couple weeks, are going to have a move-in day when we get to move into our new house. All right.
On
I'm
Christmas
pretty sure if
Day.
I get the whole teen class, it's gonna go quick. You know, many hands. Impromptu teen activity coming soon. No, I'm kidding. I don't know if Miss Christine's gonna trust most of the guys to handle certain things and stuff. There we go.
That's what it is. Little hands make
Trouble.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Back up here. But let me ask you this: why is it helpful to have multiple? You know, not be by yourself when it comes to work. Like, what can having a partner or a team do to help you when it comes to work? Micah.
A lot less injury.
A lot less injury. All right.
Well,
It
maybe.
gives you more ideas for what you're doing.
Gives you more ideas. That's very good. Yeah.
Less effort on your part.
Less effort. Yeah, it lightens. I'm not saying you're giving less effort, but it lightens the load. All right. Never be that guy in the group project that kind of sits back and still gets an A but does no work. Okay. Not that Pastor Tim was ever that guy. All right.
When you work with others, you get to socialize.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of, now, you know, sometimes, you know, people like to work. There's times when I like to do things like just, like mowing the yard. I can do that by myself. I don't need other people around me. Just very chill time, very just relaxing. Miss Christine, I told her that. She says, like, that makes no sense. Why would you enjoy just mowing? I'm like, it's a relaxing time.
Really?
But there are times when it's like, you know what, this stinks. You know, I'm painting this wall all by myself, and it's like, ugh.
Oh, I'll paint by myself.
All right.
Ooh, I
See,
like
it all
that.
depends.
Yeah,
All right. But really quickly, let's move on. Before that, it's helpful to have a partner or a team when at work. It lightens the load. You get more done. All right, you have the encouragement. I like the one that somebody said, you know, you get more ideas. All right, you learn that in marriage, guys. Like, not all your ideas are good. Your wife really helps you on things. All right, like take this room. Like Miss Christine had a whole different idea for this room, and I said, you know what? We should make it in this color, and we should put this. It might be the opposite, but anyway, verse 10. All right. 4, if they fall, one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him that is alone when he falls, for he hath not another to help him up. So he's giving the idea of travel now, okay, when you're traveling. When, back in those days, the roads back then, were they paved and they had lines, you know, highways and freeways? Oh, Mary would have loved that on the way to Bethlehem, let me just tell you that, not having to go over mountains and other things. But no, they were uneven. They were on dirt roads. But not only that, okay, a lot of times there were hidden pits, traps to ensnare travelers and so forth. Does anybody remember the Good Samaritan? All right, that guy was traveling alone, and what happened to him? All right, he got taken advantage. He got robbed. So it wasn't safe then to travel by yourself, all right? Or not just because of the danger of somebody robbing you, but hey, if you're an older person or something like that, or if you're not paying attention, like if you're my brother Chris or something, you're not paying attention, he'll somehow find a divot or something in the road, and he'll twist his ankle, and the whole rest of the trip he's going to be, you know, like he's been shot. Why is it then good to have a partner?
So I can carry you.
Maybe not. That's going to ask a lot for them to carry you. But they can help you along. Like, you ever see someone get injured in football or something, you know, someone comes up along them and helps carry them off the field and so forth. They can run ahead and get help. Okay? They can obviously protect you and so forth. But obviously, that's why it's better when it comes to travel. I want you guys to remember some of these things we're going through these verses, why it's good to have a partner or a team in these certain situations, because it's all going to come to a main point here at the end when we talk about community. All right. The next thing, verse 11, it says, again, if two lie together, they have heat, but how can one be warm alone? So obviously the idea they're giving here is about like when someone's traveling, again, all right, and they have to obviously spend the night out in the wilderness or so forth. By themselves, they'll be cold, but if they have a team or partner, if they're family, they're obviously all going to huddle together because that provides warmth, correct? All right, and that's the idea here. It's not an impure picture or anything like that. It's just two, obviously you can have heat and you have more warmth than just being by yourself. How can you have warmth then if you're only by yourself? All right, what would you need? Blankets. All right. All right. If you're like my wife or something like that, you might need multiple blankets or pillows.
I need none.
Yep.
I'll be fine with it.
All right. Don't be that person who's traveling that brings like 8 pillows because you just need them to fill up the tent or something like that. All right. But anyway, you have to bring blankets. That's what somebody would have to do. So what does that mean if you're bringing extra blankets? What are you adding? Lock.
Weights to your camel.
Weights to your camel. What if you're not rich enough to have a camel?
Wait.
You're rucking that around. You know, you got extra blankets. That's something you have to carry. You're adding to your load. All right? You get strong, but understand this here. You're adding to your load. Okay? You're not. There's a very important saying I learned as a teenager that you guys should also learn and take to heart. You probably already know it. It's work smarter, not harder.
And that's why.
All right?
That's why I get
No one's impressed. Listen up.
Dex.
No one's impressed if you're doing a task difficultly that could be done much more easily. All right, no one's really, you know what they're thinking?
Algebra.
All right, yeah. No one's impressed when you're doing something difficultly that could be done easily. All right, work smarter, not harder, and that's why it's important to have a partner or a team to help out with that. Okay? If you want to stay warm by yourself, you're going to add to your load. All right? A lot of times, if you're choosing to do things by yourself, not relying in God, not relying in other people to come alongside you, Joanna, please. All right, not relying on other people to come alongside you, it's going to be harder to do it by yourself. Okay? That is true in physical things, and that is true in spiritual things as well. All right? It's not easy to do things by yourself. Last one, verse 12. And if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. All right, he's talking about protection. Once again, the picture of traveling. It was dangerous for anyone to travel alone, day or night. Most traveled in group for fellowship and safety, which is obviously bringing us to the idea, I think Brother Patrick mentioned this on Sunday, that there was probably more than 3 wise men, all right, because they wouldn't travel by themselves, especially that great a distance, just the 3 of them. They probably came in a big group or a caravan, okay? We just think 3 wise men. Why?
Because 3
Because
gifts.
of 3 gifts, exactly. Protection, all right? Protection and teaching. Who is it in our lives that protects us? Primarily. Joanne?
Parents.
Your parents. All right, your parents primarily protect you. All right, how many guys know that one verse that parents always want your kids to learn? All right, anybody know it? Children.
Well, no, it's and then there's be kind one to another.
Oh, we're going with the first one we're mentioning. Josiah, go ahead.
Children obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right.
Honor thy father and mother.
That the days
That-
may be long upon the land which the Lord
What was
gives.
before that though? Doesn't it say that it may be wealthy?
Oh,
Or maybe that's a different word.
that-
But anyway,
that's probably
the idea is there, all right? Children obey your parents, all right? That may be wealthy, all right? It's not just because they're protecting you, all right? But they also are teaching you as well, all right? Good parents are going to help not just protect you, they're also going to teach you as well. How does teaching protect you? All right? And obviously I'm not talking about when your parents are trying to help you with your algebra or something like that. But what teaching can help you?
When they tell you not to stick safety pins in the electrical outlet.
All right, when they teach you not to do dumb things.
Don't touch the
Okay.
Hey.
What other teachings, all right, can your parents impart upon you that can protect you? Micah.
Keep your mouth shut sometimes.
All right. What we're gonna put that under the category of is Proverbs. All right. When they're teaching you a good general truth that's gonna help you in life, like, hey, you know what? Think before you speak, or something like that. That could protect you because you could be mouthing off to the wrong person. All right. All right, we have to move on, but you guys get the idea. Your parents protect you much more than just physically, but also in what they teach you and impart upon you as well. And understand that's not just with your parents, that's with others as well that teach you, that God brings into your life to help you grow spiritually. Let's have this idea. How many of you guys thought you knew everything about a certain subject until someone came along with new information? All right, I'm not just saying that because I've seen many of you guys do this as teenagers, but that's why it's good to have a community, all right? And then he gives the picture of a threefold cord, all right? And obviously he's talking about making a rope or a big cord that's very strong. It's intertwining these 3 separate cords, okay? Now, if you simply just had the 3 cords themselves lying next to each other on the ground, are they strong by themselves? No. If you wrap 2 of them together, is that stronger?
Yes.
Yes, but if you wrap 3 together, is that stronger still?
Yeah.
All right? You're not strong as an island, all right? You need that community. All right? So, and we have, I have on your notes there, Philippians 2, verse 2. This gives the picture of the power of unity. Fulfill ye my joy that you be like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. All right? So, if we go back at the beginning of this section, we said that the definition of community was a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. All right? As a Christian, we said our greatest source of fellowship is Jesus Christ. All right? That should affect our attitude. All right? That should affect our interest, and that should definitely affect our goals. All right? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are you allowing to have influence in your life? Who are you fellowshipping with? Are they helping you grow in the Lord? All right? Now let me ask you this. This is everything we're getting to. What has God provided for you as a child of God to be a great source of community? Ethan.
The Bible?
Alright.
Really? I talked to my posters before I brought them.
All right.
The church.
The church. God has provided for the believer the church as a great source of community. All right? This is why we tell people all the time it's important to be in church. Okay? We talked about earlier, Locke brought up how people order things. Now, what's the thing that people use nowadays to be like, oh, I went to church, but they didn't really go to church? YouTube. They live stream. Does Lighthouse Baptist Church live stream their service?
Yeah.
Yes, all right? It's not an evil thing, all right? It's not a bad thing. Sometimes it's a necessary thing. But understand, it's not the same as actually fellowshipping and going to church with that community. All right, so we got 3 verses here, all right? We're going to get to it really quick, so get ready. All right, make sure you got to stand up when you get to it. Ephesians 4:29.
Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to use it of edifying, that it may minister grace unto them.
That it may minister grace to the hearers. So that was Ephesians 4:29. If you want your notes, the key word there was edifying. Does anybody know what edifying means? Joanna.
To lift up?
To lift up, that's true. What do you know what else?
I was about ready to say to build another up. But
Yeah, to lift up, to build up. That's the idea, all right? So if you want a good way to remember it, I was taught that the best way to understand it is like, hey, edify, stupid. All right? Don't talk down. It's kind of ironic because you're saying stupid in the same thing. But you want to build people up, not tear them down. The church is supposed to do that. It should do that for the fellow believer. Help build you up in your faith. All right, next verse. Hebrews, if you already got one tonight, don't worry, work on this one, all right? Hebrews 10:25.
Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching.
All right, so once again, if you want it for your notes, that's Hebrews 10:25. That's the verse we most often use a lot of times for, hey, you need to go to church. Hey, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves. But the sad thing I get from that a lot of times is people are focusing on that whole assembling of ourselves part. Hey, you can't forget the assembling of yourselves. Like, that's why we need to come to church. We need to assemble. But the reason it's important is in the later part of that verse when it says exhorting one another. All right, the word exhort means to admonish. All right, it means to comfort, means to strengthen, it means to encourage. It's many different. Really, what it means is any way that you relate to someone to help them grow. That's what I get from it. Exhorting someone. All right, if I'm going to admonish someone or if I'm going to rebuke someone for something they did, it's not for the sole goal of critiquing them. It's so that they can grow and learn. And the church is there for the believer to help admonish them, to help them grow as a Christian. Now, as a brief aside, understand this. All right, why I say it's important not to focus on the assembling part. I'm not saying we shouldn't come to church and assemble together, but I feel like people oftentimes just focus solely on that, where they're like, hey, whenever the doors are open, you need to be at church. But understand this, as Christ said often in his ministry, is it simply about what you do that matters? No, what matters?
The heart.
The heart. And understand this, there are people who for a majority of their lives have kept the, I'm going to go to church whenever the doors are open, all right? I'm not forsaking the assembling, all right? Who aren't actually keeping it by their heart. What I mean by that is they're simply just coming to church because they know they're supposed to go to church, but they're really not being faithfully obedient to God when they come to church, if you guys follow that. They're really just doing it. They're going through the motion. You guys right now, I'm not saying you're being forced, but you're coming to church mostly because your parents make you come to church. There's going to come a time where you have to decide, all right, am I going to go to church or am I going to stay home? And if I go to church, am I going there because I want to worship God and fellowship with fellow believers, or am I just going there because that's what I'm supposed to do as a Christian? All right, which one do you think is better than the other? All right, so anyway, last verse, or verse is Galatians 6:1-2. And if you mess up, the church shouldn't be the first one to kick you out. It should be the first one to help come alongside you and help you learn and help you overcome whatever it is that you have been found in a fault in.